All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
What up, everybody? Welcome, through the storm. Bail my bank out. It's bail my bank out Monday. Welcome.
My bad. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry about that. You know, I know it's the thing, and I had the investments in the startup, and I just needed a little help. Yeah.
Was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
You know, if the startup was successful, they would have poured some money back into the public coffer. I mean, it would have been... I think you really have a tough spot with SVB, so we'll talk about that. You know, do you bail them out or don't you? I've kind of schemed out a couple of different scenarios, and we'll share them with you. Let me just also mention that Michael Hiltzik, forget about me, he's the Pulitzer Prize-winning LA Times business writer. He will be here, and he will really break it down for us. So that'll happen in the 11 o'clock hour. The storm is the big news. Spencer Christian joins us in just a few minutes. We'll talk about the storm. And the other big news is Mark's Madness.
There's never been anything like this.
It begins this week. It's going to be strong. Oh, I'm telling you what. And by the way, you know who's here just for, I told him, you're really just like, you know how relatives go down to the cruise ship dock and they wave as the grandparents go away? That's what Tony is doing today. Tony is here.
Thanks, Tony.
He's just here to make sure the show gets off smoothly. Now, did that mix sound okay, Tony?
Sounds great, actually.
Okay, all right.
It wasn't too loud. Could hear you fine.
Okay.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, Tony.
Oh, Tony, I miss you. Oh,
Technical ninja,
God,
yeah.
Tony.
So he's on the dock. He waved as the show got going, like see you later. And as we go over the horizon,
Oh no!
yeah, he'll go.
Thanks, Tony.
Tragedy.
Oh,
Well, Tony, what angered you?
all right. So that's the latest. Yeah, take those pics. You can join us, of course, during the live broadcast. We're on from 10 to noon Pacific time every day. You can join us in the chat. There's a chat right there in YouTube, and you can hang out with us. It's really a fun and interesting group of people who have joined in that community. I'd say it's the one real upside to getting things started on the YouTube platform. So I encourage you to join there. And if you're watching in replay, and most do, we get a couple thousand replay viewers who enjoy the show that way and take it in that way and participate that way. You can also leave us comments in YouTube in replay. So that continues to be a way that you can participate. One of the things that I get a comment on, and then I do want to get to the storms because Kim can speak to it firsthand. It's been raining at Kim's house. Is it still raining? Or not?
all weekend long.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't been outside.
Well,
Kim, how are you?
so what we'll do is check in on the storm in a bigger way in a minute. But I just wanted to handle the superficial stuff first. You can see, if you're watching on YouTube, my cadaverous pallor. My face looks ghost white. I look like a hospital patient that just like, you know, those in the movies, how they sneak out, you know? I can't stay here through the week. I got to get back on the case. But you can't leave now. If you leave now, you might die. I have to find that girl. And they get out of the hospital. That's what that's the complexion color that I look like I have. Now, I don't know why that is. Cadaverous is a ding word. You're right. I will work with that. Tony will have to help me with that.
I'm sorry. Tony's back at the dock.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's right. He is back at the dock. So anyway.
My bad. I'm sorry.
So, Albert, before I get into the storm, which is serious, I mean, there's been, levee break over the weekend. It's been really brutal. Will you update us? You are the commissioner of Mark's Madness. Will you please update us on the Mark's Madness tournament, which does kick off this week, please?
Yeah, so there's nothing today, so everybody relax. I will have some content being released about the drops today via podcast. So for you podcast listeners, and if people you want to participate, you can go listen to the drops there. But we have 2 matchups as the play-ins. They will be the last 2 teams or last 2 drops that will make it into the tournament, and that'll be tomorrow. So that's your first major date. So tomorrow, play-ins, and then Wednesday, brackets, and then Thursday, the tournament begins. So just as of right now, I don't want to confuse everybody. Just tomorrow will be the play-ins.
Okay, tomorrow the play-in. And the other thing, the big news, I think, is that if you're not sure of what a drop is, or if you just want to be reminded of what a drop is, because it's sort of abbreviated, it'll just say Larry King scene or something, then you go to the podcast.
What can you tell us about the scene?
And you can, that's what that one is. Okay, and then you can better evaluate how you think that drop's going to do through the tournament. And the last thing I'll say about March Madness is that there is a brand new, still has the new smell in it. There's a brand new drop that just made it in. It made it in just before the tournament started. And it could be the Cinderella story. Don't you agree, Commissioner?
I agree. And it actually hasn't hit our airwaves as a drop yet. It was something that happened live on the show. And it was a wild and bizarre moment, but we were able to clip it, and we talked about it, and the commission, we all reviewed the tape and the quality of it, and there were some adjustments made, and we decided that it was good enough to be a part of the tournament.
And what we're talking about is Jim Avila on Friday. He was doing his political commentary and his cultural insight in the world of politics and world events. And I think a cleaning person or someone, wasn't it, who came in and he said, or maybe it was his physical therapist, he's doing physical therapy to, improve his walking because he had a foot injury.
Sure.
And he said, what did he say, Albert? Do you have it or not?
I do have it, unless you want to run it. I have it right here.
Ma'am, I'm on the phone.
Ma'am, I'm on the phone.
Ma'am, I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone. Ma'am, I'm on the phone.
Yeah. Ma'am, I'm on the phone.
Ma'am, I'm on the phone.
Will make it into March Madness.
Ma'am, I'm on the phone.
I don't know what it'll face off against, but Ma'am, I'm on the phone is the newest.
Ma'am, I'm on the phone.
Okay, so we will put Ma'am, I'm on the phone into the tourney.
Ma'am, I'm on the phone.
And you have to decide how far you think it'll go. All right. That's March Madness. So, and your summary on that.
There's never been anything like this.
The Mark Thompson Show.
There never has been anything like this. Welcome to all of you. You should know that Steve Moskowitz is our sponsor, continues to be. He has been in the Bay Area for more than 30 years, putting his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses alike. He helps build businesses. He helps businesses with tax issues. He can help you hunt down that government money. If you want to get in touch with him, it's easy. 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAXDEAL, or reach him online, MoskowitzLLP.com. If you want to reach us on the show, it's easy also. The Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. The Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. Speaking of sponsorships, there are some sponsorship opportunities on this show, and you can reach me at that address, and we can fill you in on what it takes. So if you have a small business or want to get some visibility for whatever endeavor you're involved in, maybe it's a service industry business, whatever, this is a good place to do it. TheMarkThompsonShow.com. Oh, I'm sorry, TheMarkThompsonShow at gmail.com.
There you go.
TheMarkThompsonShow.com will take you to our website. That's where Patreon and PayPal click-throughs hang out. You can do it. But again, to reach us, it's TheMarkThompsonShow at gmail.com. So there's that,
The Mark Thompson Show.
So the weather is pretty front and center. I mean, it's pouring rain in the Bay Area. Southern California will get a blast later today. What's the latest? What can you tell us about the scene?
What can you tell us about the scene?
What can you tell us about the scene, Kim? Do you have anything?
I can tell you that another atmospheric river is on the way in, and we saw some serious damage over the weekend from the rains that came, especially in the area of Pajaro, which is near Watsonville. I don't know if you saw the pictures of the levee break there, but this is some serious business. They had,
scary.
Yeah, really scary. There's some pictures too.
Explain to everybody where Watsonville is, who doesn't live in California.
Oh, so Watsonville is in Santa Cruz County. In between, I would say it's sandwiched in between Monterey and Santa Cruz.
There you
but
go.
it's
So,
technically in Santa Cruz. It's a really large agricultural area. It's coastal. It's right on the beach. So yeah, I'm going to show you some of these images. Let me share the screen. It's outrageous.
Well, and if it's hard for you to get them, you can rally them for Spencer, who's coming up in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, no, I think I can. I think I can share these with you. It's just, this community of people has had their homes completely inundated with water. Here you go. See, we can look at it. That's
Wow.
just a little bit of the flooding in that area. Look at this other picture here. Look at the town.
Jeez,
The little town there.
that's because of the levee break.
That's because of the levee break. Look at the water level, in some case coming midway up to the cars, in some case up to the rooftop of cars.
Let me bring in Spencer Christian right now to talk about. You know him from ABC7. Spencer Christian, longtime friend of the show. And I guess Kim was just saying there's more rain coming, another atmospheric river, as it's really with the subtropical moisture tap.
That's absolutely right. It looks like the heaviest rain will begin shortly after midnight tonight, between midnight and about 2 a.m. There'll be little trickles leading up to then, but I mean the true force of the storm surging on shore between midnight and 2 a.m. and up until about 10 or 11 a.m. tomorrow. So during that 10-hour or so time frame, we can expect pretty heavy downpours, like all across the region, not confined to just one part of the Bay Area. Wind gusts up to about 55 miles per hour or higher. Obviously, widespread localized flooding. It's just going to be a mess. And, we've already got this. So, if a storm like this were to roll in after, 15 days of dry weather, we wouldn't be so concerned. But coming on top of what we've already had and existing flooding and mudsliding, it's just very, very upsetting.
Well, it's upsetting, and as you say, the other things that happen, the consequences of unrelenting storms, are associated with things like levee breaks, just what we were reviewing in Watsonville. So,
here's a few more pictures. This is the on Main Street, North Main in SoCal. This road gave way, and it trapped about 300 people in neighborhoods on the other side of this road. There's only one road in and one road out of these neighborhoods. There it is again. So, yeah, you could walk through a field if you needed to get to the store, but you can't take your car at that point. In San Francisco, the Trocadero Clubhouse in Golden Gate Park, a tree came down right onto that historic venue, which a lot of people rent out for weddings and such, and just ripped the roof right off. Came right down. So and then rain poured into the building as well. So that's going to have to be repaired. A lot of damage.
This picture is a great example of why people shouldn't think that we're being alarmists. We're trying to issue life-saving warnings to people here, or not. I shouldn't say warnings, but advisories. Several people have been killed by falling trees in this recent time of storms. What was it? A jogger or a hiker last week was killed by a falling tree. So falling trees are obviously a concern, and roofs caving in from the weight of the weight of snow up in the Sierra. But even here, some roofs have been saturated with water and have collapsed. And then you've got people, driving into what appears to be shallow water, then get into it and find out they're in deep water that can sweep their cars away. So there are lots of things we need to really be careful and thoughtful about as these storms continue to pound us.
And it's just one. Go ahead.
One more shot of Pajaro.
Oh wow!
God, that's just insane. This is for those listening. That's sort of just a wide shot of the town.
Yeah, that's near. It's Pajaro. That's the levee break. The levee broke. Waters flooded this community, and look what happens.
Oh man!
I mean, it's just it's unbelievable. I mean, it's an inundation of the of the sort that we fear.
Yep.
And there were evacuations, as you know. There was an urgency about getting people out of there. So brutal situation. And I want to just for a minute, because we have Spencer Christian here, ask you about the Sierra. So this is a wet system, right? And when I say that, I mean, I know they're all wet, Mark, no, what I mean is that it's a warm weather system. So carries a little bit more moisture, but also because of the warmth, there'll be a lot of rain falling in the Sierra and wet snow as opposed to the kind of drier snow that was falling during the cold weather storms.
Yeah, that is so true, Mark. It is a warmer storm, warmer air. There'll be rain falling on top of the snow, as well as in the higher elevations, more snow. So the warmer rain falling on the snow will cause more of the snow to melt, which adds to the flooding potential, the flooding threat. And I was talking to, I don't know if I've appeared on your show since I had the interview with the mayor of Lake Tahoe last week, but she was talking about how heavy the snow is that has collected on roofs. And we're talking about roof collapses. And I said, well, this rain is going to make it even worse, right? She says, oh, I'm glad you brought that up. And she was cautioning people to, if you can't remove it yourself, try to find someone who can remove snow from your rooftops up in the Sierra, because that's also a hazardous situation.
Yeah, the snow the snow and the rain together just make for all sorts of additional problems.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when does this all end?
Oh, gosh, I wish I could tell you, Mark.
I mean life.
I know.
I don't mean the storms. I mean all this crap that we have to deal with.
Well, I'm hoping for another 20, 25 years of life. If I can eke out another 25 years and know that
you are high as a kite.
Well, I am straight, but I'm just telling you, once in a while.
But as for the weather pattern, so this storm appears to be the last significant one for the next 7 days, but we expect some clearing, maybe even partial clearing late tomorrow, but certainly Wednesday and Thursday. But Friday looks like some light rain or scattered showers coming in, and then Sunday, more light rain and scattered showers coming in. And again, a light rain event wouldn't be anything to think about if it weren't on top of all of this.
Wow. Hey, Albert is, as commissioner of Mark's Madness, I'll ask you, is Spencer getting a bracket? Are we going to try to cajole Spencer Christian into, cajole's a ding word. Are we going to try to push him, force him, and otherwise?
Of course, Spencer likes to participate with us quite frequently. He's probably our most frequent guest, so of course, I will send him a bracket.
And Spencer's been listening for a while, so he knows what some of the drops are already. And you'll get him up to speed. In fact, there's a podcast that goes through all the drops if you want to hear them again. But okay, Spencer, we'd love to have you participate. Most of our regular contributors are participating. So
I'd love to do it, yeah.
All right, cool. So, by the way, if you want to see a study in contrast, look how great Spencer Christian looks on the YouTube feed. And well, I mean, look, Spencer,
have you not learned?
He's a handsome dude, African American dude.
You just can't.
But look at me. I'm
That's
truly.
not fake. That's real.
I look like I just got out of. I was saying earlier, I look like I snuck out of the hospital or something because I'm so like I haven't seen the light of day. Look at me, it's terrible. I mean, I look like a goth, like one of those goth kids from. Anyway.
But you have your own show, and I don't.
Thank you, Spencer, for making me feel better. That's really great.
And you have the pleasure of working with Kim and Albert every day, and I don't.
Well, let's not lay it on too.
There's never been anything like this.
See, he knows. He knows where to
go. Spencer Christian, everybody, find him on ABC7. Thank you, Spencer.
Bye, guys.
We love you, pal. Love you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Oscars last night. Did you watch them?
I watched all the clips after the fact.
I see. Well, I watched the entire thing in real time with Courtney, who will join us at the bottom of the hour right after Kim's news for Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. And she will actually go into a murder today that deals with someone who was left out of the in memoriam last night and is a show business figure. And I'm talking about Robert Blake. Robert Blake, who just died. He was Beretta.
What?
Yeah. He was involved. I'll let her tell the story. And because I frankly don't remember the story super clearly, he was involved in and accused of I don't mean to chuckle, it was just it was a weird story, the death of his wife and the murder of his wife. So we'll get to Courtney bottom of the hour, but we watched the show in real time, and I'll tell you, I thought it was a pretty good show. I know it's not popular to say that, but I thought Jimmy Kimmel was brilliant. I thought he was just terrific.
Awesome.
Yeah. He was irreverent enough that he was himself, Jimmy Kimmel, but he was not so irreverent that it doesn't any longer seem as though he enjoys the movies or the world of Hollywood. I mean, after all, you are there to celebrate movies. You know, the Oscars are stupid, right? We've talked about this before. Any kind of award show where you compare works of art, I mean, these are creative endeavors and you're comparing them. I can say to you, I enjoyed this movie more than that movie, but that's not saying that that movie's better. It's just saying that for me, or you hear people say this, you know, Kim, I think you'd like Women Talking more than you'd like, or I think you'd like one movie over another. But they wouldn't say this movie's better than the other if they really are respectful to the creative endeavors involved. You can't say a Da Vinci is better than a Michelangelo. I mean, they're different. If they were both painting the same thing, then maybe you could compare them. But they don't. Everything Everywhere All at Once can't be compared to All Quiet on the Western Front. Anyway.
Right.
But with that said, it is a celebration of Hollywood. It was started as a promotion for Hollywood, and it's turned into this thing. They call it the Academy, as I've mentioned to you before. It's the most ridiculous thing, but it's called the Academy. Great branding, because it sounds like a really august institution. But I thought he still respected all of that while being irreverent, you know?
Yeah. He was just rude enough.
Thank you. Just rude enough. That's exactly it. And I thought the show was fine. I mean, it's long. You have to really be in for, you know, the long haul.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen a bunch of these movies, and let's face it, some of us haven't, I mean, even if you've seen all the major feature films, the shorts, the animated stuff, the documentaries, some of these other things, you know, get away from you. It's really hard to take in all that content. It made me want to see all the shorts and documentaries and stuff, you know. But
did you see the awkward interview that Hugh Grant gave on the red carpet?
I did. I saw it live. and tell everybody what you're talking about, because it was pretty great.
So he's, you know, the typical red carpet interview, like, who are you wearing? Are you enjoying being here? Is there anyone that you're hoping will win tonight? Oh, I loved you in Glass Onion. His answers were stilted, awkward. When she said, I loved you in Glass Onion, he was like, I was only in it for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
When she said, who are you wearing? He said, my suit. When he said,
okay, go ahead. You finish, and then I'll tell you why I think Hugh Grant, it was reasonable.
It was, it was extraordinarily awkward. It was like she was pulling teeth trying to interview him. He wasn't giving her anything.
Kim is right. Right. He was not there to help her out. And
you know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Yeah. If you're going to stop for
rolled his eyes as he walked away. I was like, oh God, that was bad.
If you're going to stop, there are two ways to look at this.
Yeah.
One is, if you're going to stop for a red carpet interview, you should be up for whatever they ask, you're going to turn it into something. You know what I mean? That's just part of the game.
You just don't get it, do you?
Yeah, right, exactly.
You don't.
That's the game. The other thing you should know, though, is that as an interviewer, when different people come through your world, you should have questions that you can direct to them that are not super generic, like, who are you wearing? First of all, come on, the dude's wearing a basic tux. That's a sign she's kind of out of question. So I say bad on her for that question. Number two, he's right. He was only in Glass Onion but he could have done more with that. He could have said, well, I was only in it for a couple of minutes, but I'm glad the movie turned out so well. Certainly so much fun. And then she said, well, you had fun doing it, didn't you? I mean, that was kind of like you could see her take on water and not really have the ability to get herself out. And I said to Courtney, I said this. Here's what you want to say, not are you rooting for anybody to win? No one wants to answer a question like that. Right. I mean, it's just not, because they're all in the community of artists involved in feature filmmaking, okay? So again, this is if you don't view the whole thing as stupid and blah, 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 blah. So there he is, Hugh Grant with her, but in the still picture. But please don't show more, because I'll be demonetized or whatever if I show anything more. But what you should say is, did you see anything this year that stood out to you? What were some of your favorite movies? And you can begin to do it that way. I know in addition to being an actor in movies, you must enjoy going to the movies. Is there anything that you've seen that you particularly liked? What are a few of the films that you liked? You can take it out of the... I said this at the moment, so this isn't something I mean, it's not that hard.
Right.
And I thought the interviewer was overmatched. She just didn't know. I mean, what are you wearing? Who are you rooting for tonight? Those are lame questions, and they put him in a tough spot.
I maintain that he's been an actor for a long time. He's wandered down a lot of these red carpets. He's done a lot of these interviews over the years. And it shouldn't matter how stupid the question.
Okay.
You can turn an answer around, and you can, if someone says, are you rooting for anyone to win tonight? You can say, I saw a lot of really good movies this year. Here's some of the ones I enjoyed. You can take the question and answer, give it a completely different answer, even if it was the lamest question in history.
That's a fair point.
So, I mean, he's experienced enough that he didn't have to tank that interview.
I agree with that.
He's not there for her. He's there for the fans that want to see him.
All right, I stand corrected.
So all right, if I'm a Hugh Grant fan, I know that he has a history of not being the nicest guy, right? But if I'm a Hugh Grant fan, I want to see, I'm interested in the interview. I want to see what he has to say. I'm excited to see him on screen. He could have done more with that just for himself and his own fans.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, it does sort of, the responsibility falls to him.
I've told you, it's never easy being in this business.
Yeah, they had a bunch of newcomers doing the red carpet thing. I know that if you only watched the event, you didn't get this. But they do a red carpet thing. It's also on the network, Yeah. And it was all these influencers. That's who they are. It's not movie people anymore. It's people with 15 million followers on Instagram. That's what they want. They want to bring in a new audience, and you do it through people who have literally, they had a guy backstage who has 15 million followers on TikTok. Okay? So what movies has he been in? None. He's never been in a movie set, probably, but he's been on TikTok, and he's incredibly popular, and we want to bring in TikTok viewers. So you see how producers are reaching out for more. So the woman who was interviewing Hugh Grant isn't someone who's done this a jillion times. No. And so I think you're right, Kim. He probably should have thrown her a line, thrown her a lifeline. So it's a fair point.
And, I'll say that we're now YouTubers, which at one point I would have thought was kind of for young people, like for the teens among us, the early 20 crowd, the influencer crowd. And so I guess I have to think of it differently, that yes, it's a different platform. We might be YouTubers or what have you, but we still carry the same skills, and we still carry the same, I don't know, I would like to say, and maybe it's, putting a braggadocious spin on it, but kind of gravitas as a longtime broadcasters, right? Yeah. And so I guess I don't think you can say, oh, well, he's only a TikToker. Well, I'm only a YouTuber. I could handle that red carpet pretty well. So could you.
No. Don't misunderstand me. I was trying to say two things. One is that these are not people who have a history in film. Or being around film. They're not film critics. They used to have Roger Ebert do it, for example. I mean, that was many years ago. But
maybe they're not interviewers professionally.
But that's the second point, that they're not. They're not second point. They're not used to this particular scene. So it is like.
What can you tell us about the scene?
The idea is that from that standpoint, they're fish out of water. On the other hand, I would have loaded. I said this to Courtney. You can tell it's horrible watching things like this with me. But I would have said, if you're a producer, you tell them ahead of time, here's a basic question you can always default to, and it's not what are you wearing, who are you wearing.
Right.
It's I know you enjoy the movies, and or I'm sure you enjoy the movies, if you want to say it that way. What were some of your favorite movies in either from this field, this or other Oscar seasons? What have you enjoyed seeing? What kind of movies do you like? Stuff like that. Keep it about the movies, It was a lot about, what did you do today? You know what I mean? Anyway, that was the, remember, she kept asking that question, what was your day like? And then he goes, well, it was kind of like a normal day, blah, blah, blah. having said that, that was before the show started. Once the show started, I thought they moved it at a pretty good pace. Everything, everywhere, all at once. You saw that, Kim, that movie?
I tried to see it. I stopped halfway through. I couldn't.
Okay.
You're talking about how, you don't always like the movies that win. And it was too many multiverses and I couldn't keep track of them all. And I just thought this movie's too complicated. And I'm not.
If you need to explain the movie to so many people, then it's a fail on the part of the film. And this is a really weird thing to say the day after this movie has just swept the Oscars. But I'm going to go try again to watch it. I feel it was a fail on my part because I didn't get it. I thought All Quiet on the Western Front was a spectacular. It was almost orchestral in its virtuosity in every way, cinematically, from a writing standpoint, from an acting and performance standpoint. And the lead, it was his first movie, and I didn't know that till last night. So
it won Best International Film, right?
Yeah, which is the way that they screw over. They screwed over what's his name? Who did they screw over the same way with the international? They did that a few years back.
I forget, but I know what you mean.
Who's the? He's the Latino. They screwed the Latino man. You remember the one I'm talking about 3 years ago? They screwed him the same way they screwed these guys. Anyway, Courtney predicted everything. It was sick. Like every category, bam, bam, bam. Even the weird categories like documentary film or animated short, where you couldn't possibly have known. Still, she predicted it correctly. Anyway. Well, happy Oscars. We'd love to know what you thought. And if we get some time toward the end of the show, we'll circle back around to it. I mean, clearly that's a brilliant movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I love those actors who were involved in it, and the people involved were great. But it didn't land for me, the movie. But I feel really guilty for saying that. I do need to take another look at it.
I actually watched it in the movie theaters, and I'm still confused. I still haven't figured it out. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't feel like the representation, but other than the representation, I was like, I want to understand this movie, and I see that there's just like general, how you feel at the end of movies. It's just like, okay, this is about this is about this, and this is what I should get out of the movie. I kind of got it, but at the same time, I was like, it was a really hard way to get there.
What's interesting is that both of our movie reviewers loved it. Like Michael Snyder loved it, Tim Seega loved it. So the reviewers came at it with, this is a wonderful movie. And I was like, I don't understand it.
Take this stuff in a more sophisticated way or something. I don't know. Anyway, we're running late. Smash the like button like a boss. And Courtney will be coming up with Mark's
your iron rod.
Murder Mystery Monday next. Kim's news, of course, very next. And then, as I mentioned, we'll talk about the failure of SVB and the bailout with Michael Hiltzik, the Pulitzer Prize-winning LA Times business writer. We'll do that in the 11 o'clock hour. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show, and this report is sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. How can we not start with Silicon Valley Bank? Yeah. So financial experts are telling the United States consumers not to panic after two bank failures. California's Silicon Valley Bank failed on Friday. It was followed by the closure of New York-based Signature Bank on Sunday. Most money managers say banks that failed are specialized, and the FDIC will be making depositors' cash good. So it looks like the bailout is underway. President Biden is meeting with leaders from the UK and Australia. Here's a picture of the president. Later today, they are expected to discuss security issues in the Pacific and an agreement to build nuclear-powered submarines. President Biden also delivering a speech from a submarine base at 2 o'clock this afternoon, Pacific time. There's a bridge linking Mexico to Texas. It is back open after about 1,000 migrants rushed it. Most of the Venezuelan migrants stormed the bridge Sunday after hearing word the border may be open for express asylum. Border Patrol responded. There was a tense standoff that ensued there. Yeah, that bridge is now reopened again. The Pentagon wants more money as it deals with threats posed by countries around the world. It wants Congress to approve an $842 billion budget for fiscal year 2024. Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks citing threats from Russia and China as a reason for this bigger budget. There's men diagnosed with localized prostate cancer can safely wait. Here's my little prostate picture for you guys. Can safely wait.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Before undergoing radiation or surgery. Now, that is according to a new study published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Researchers involved say it's good news because prostate tumor removal often causes incontinence and sexual problems. So if you can wait longer to have this done, then you don't have those symptoms as early on. Back to the storm, another 6 counties in California are now under a state of emergency. Let's go back to this picture of Pajaro and the levee break here that just devastated this community. Governor Gavin Newsom adding Calaveras, Del Norte, Glenn, Kings, San Benito, and San Joaquin counties yesterday. This will support storm response and relief efforts, even waive fees to replace vital records like marriage and birth certificates. The governor also revealing his request for presidential emergency declaration has been approved. He thanked President Biden for his swift action and all the heroic first responders for working tirelessly to save lives as well. A lot of rescues over the weekend. You can get ready for California's 11th atmospheric river this winter. Number 11 on the way. The northern part of our state set to see heavy rain and wind start tonight. The southern part gets hit tomorrow. This means more flooding, mudslides, snow, even avalanches. Several reservoirs are now well above average for this time of year, and that is why officials have released water from some dams. And Lake Oroville, they did on Friday as well, to assist with flood control and make room for even more rain. And Spencer Christian was talking about structures and the potential for roof collapse. This is the Rayleighs at South Lake Tahoe, right near Heavenly Village. It is closed until further notice. The building evacuated because of structural concerns for the safety of anyone inside. They had to take everybody out. They're saying it might not be safe, and that is because of storm-related damage. This report is sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL and MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
Joe Fish, Sal the Shoemaker, Joe Box, and Little Anthony.
Their envy wonton killing. I don't know what a wonton killing is. I'm going to have to look that one up.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
What up, everybody? I am excited. Thank you for that smattering of recorded applause. A lot of people would be, they would feel that somehow fake and it doesn't buoy their spirits. But as you know, I feel oddly lifted by the smattering of recorded applause. So I wanted to quickly bring Tony back in. Yes. Tony, can you help me with making sure that Courtney can be heard?
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. All right. Before we get started, Courtney, welcome to the show, first of all. My other half, love of my life. Courtney, go ahead. Speak for us, please.
I am speaking.
You're speaking.
No.
Now, how do I make her louder, Tony?
Okay. So on the mixing board here, I'll show you.
Yes.
I'll show you if I can see on the picture. So
just tell me. It's on the virtual...
On the virtual pot where it says 2.
Yeah.
Push that, and then there's the mute on it, and turn that off. And basically, because we muted that mic.
Well, the mute is off, Tony. But how
we
can I
need
make her louder?
Okay. When you touch that pot, you can just that little spinner, the volume knob will make it louder.
Oh, okay.
That's the gain for that pot.
Okay.
This is
Talk
fun.
Again. Go ahead, Courtney. Go ahead, speak
Can
again.
you hear me? I'm here. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right.
Okay.
Hi.
Ma'am, I'm on the phone.
Yeah. It's all just so I don't know, Tony. I don't. You know,
Technology's
again,
fun, isn't it?
it's really just.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Let me tell you what. I used to walk into a studio, and I'd sit down. I worry about content. I worry about franchises. I worry about stuff you do regularly. I worry about the things that are important to the audience, the things that will be fun.
Do you know who I am?
Exactly.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Now I have to worry about the virtual pot and turning up Courtney. Oh God, I don't know.
Yep.
He had to helicopter
the
Tony
good news-
back from shore. Wow.
Exactly. And the good news is he never talks about this off the air. He really is able to separate.
Somehow I'm not right. I'm not a complainer is the good news. All right, smash the like button like a boss, although I don't know why you would. But smash.
Trainwreck radio is the best. Come on.
Don't bother. Don't even bother hitting the
off
like.
the rail. That's when everything is good.
Walk right past it.
We love yeah, that's right. All right, we'll get to the bank bailout of SVB with Michael Hiltzik, the Pulitzer Prize winner. We'll do that just after 11 o'clock. We've already touched on what to expect in terms of the storm. It's been devastating thus far, and there's more. But on Mondays, we talk about murder mysteries. And this is Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
Welcome to Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Courtney, welcome once again.
Thank you for having me.
You are the queen of murder mystery.
Yes, yes.
Tell us what we'll be talking about today. It's kind of show business related in the shadows or in the aura that's still left over from Oscars.
It is. It is. I was working on another case, and then you and I were chatting on Saturday.
You're working on another case, were you?
I was as a true crime analyst.
Yes.
And then you and I chatted on Saturday, and you expressed some interest in better understanding this story, and then it was referenced last night during the Oscars.
How about that? Yeah.
Quickly, I wanna make an editorial note that last week with the story "Lady in the Fridge," it was actually provided to me by California Fireman. I know his handle on Twitter as well as Kim. So I do want to give him credit.
Oh, you had said that Kim had given it to you.
Yeah,
You're saying
yes.
that. Okay.
But California Fireman gave it to me as well.
Okay.
So I want to thank everybody for sending me stories because it is really appreciated, and also the support for this segment means so much. So
great.
But today we are doing the story of Robert Blake, which last night he was referenced in the Oscars during the "Give Me a Blake" segment.
Oh yes,
for the memoriam. So I'm sure that most people know this story in some capacity, but I'm gonna explain it in a little bit more detail. So Robert Blake, child actor, most famous for his roles in the film In Cold Blood in 1967 and the TV show Beretta, which was in the 70s. And he was married to a woman in the early 2000s by the name of Bonnie Lee Bakley.
Okay.
She was 44 at the time of her murder. He was 68. She was the second wife of Robert Blake, and he was the 10th husband of Bonnie Lee Bakley.
Wow.
And what's really interesting...
That is, that is sick.
But it gets a little crazier. Her second husband, who she was married to the longest, was her first cousin.
Wow.
And her eighth husband, his name was Glenn Wolfe. He was a Baptist minister. He has the record for the most marriages. He was married 31 times.
That was one of her husbands?
One of her husbands.
Wow.
Yeah, just a really interesting...
How about that, Albert? Albert likes to talk about Larry King all the time. 'Cause Larry King was married 8 times. 31 times. Wow.
Exactly. And so she leaves high school at 16 and she moves to New York, and she was actually running this business called Lonely Hearts, where she would advertise in magazines and men would send her money and she would send photographs of herself and other women in exchange for that money. It reminded me a little bit of OnlyFans.
Yeah, it's totally OnlyFans.
Yeah. And I bring that up because that background of Bonnie Lee Bakley actually created some kind of lack of confidence and sort of insecurity in the relationship on Robert Blake's part. So they meet in a jazz club. She's actually dating Christian Brando, Marlon Brando's son. But he's in jail, and she meets Robert Blake, and they begin a relationship, and she ends up pregnant. And so
she ends up pregnant?
She ends up pregnant after meeting Robert Blake at a jazz club. And he wants her to not have the child, and she moves forward and has the baby. There's a paternity test because they're not sure who the father of the baby is, and the baby's father ends up being Robert Blake. And so Bakley moves in with Robert Blake after getting married in November of 2000. She doesn't actually ever live in the house. He has her live in a guest house on the property with the child, and the child's name is Rose. If you go to the next slide, you'll see a picture of, for those that are watching, this is baby Rose, and this is adult Rose, actually, on the left-hand side. And so she lives in the guest house, and she has a relationship with Blake, but it's mostly, it's mostly, I don't know the word I want to use, sexual in nature. Like, they're not living together. They're not really this happy couple.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
It's a one-dimensional relationship, and that dimension is sexual. Okay.
There are some challenges there. The relationship is rocky. He actually hires a private investigator, as I mentioned before, to get more information around her. He's very upset that she's put him in this marriage that he doesn't want to be with, a child that he doesn't want to have. And he finds out that she's still running Lonely Hearts from the guest house, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. So
she's still sending pictures out and that kind of thing. So there's no love lost between Blake and his wife.
Yeah, no, 6 months in, they're not celebrating.
Okay.
They're living somewhat separate lives, and he doesn't trust her. So he starts to devise a plan to kill her, allegedly. And he has his security / handyman, who's been helping him a little bit. And he also reaches out to 2 stuntmen to inquire about their killing Bonnie.
Their availability to help with a killing. Just calling to inquire about your availability.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm available. I'm just wrapping up a shoot in about 2 days. What do you need? Well, it's a different kind of project. I want to kill my wife. No.
There is that. He left this crazy trail of witnesses and encounters. He actually buys a calling card with one of the stuntmen to only communicate through the calling card, but then only uses the calling card from his home phone. So the police know that he's only calling the stuntmen.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
It's just really not well thought through.
Yeah, it's a wild idea, for sure.
So on the evening of May 4th, 2001. Now, remember, they were just married in November of 2000. So we're talking, what is that, 6-8 months?
Mm-hmm.
Robert Blake takes Bonnie Lee Bakley to Vitello's, a restaurant in Studio City.
Mm-hmm.
If you go down to the next slide, for those that are watching. All right, so this is Vitello's. Vitello's does not look like this any longer. But at the time, this was Vitello's.
Looks like a nice place.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, a nice Italian place.
Let me finish. To kill your spouse.
To kill your spouse.
Can you let him finish?
Yeah, all right.
And so they go in and they have dinner. And if you go down, there's actually something on the menu that was named after Robert Blake because he was there.
He was there
much.
so frequently.
Yeah. So
the
it's like
fusilli a minestra alla Robert Blake.
Yeah. Also, the meal that you eat before you kill somebody. And then he actually liked table number 42, which is this booth here. It's an image of the booth. He sat there. It was kind of close to the door, but this was what he ate every time he went, and this is where he sat every time he went. And he visited Vitello's quite often. It was his favorite restaurant. So they go and eat at Vitello's, and they leave at about 9:30 is when he checks out of the restaurant. Now, he did not use the valet. He parked the car about a block and a half away on a residential street next to a construction site and next to a dumpster. By the way, as you would, right? Like, why use the convenience of a valet? So he parks there, and he justifies it by saying that all of these men are coming after Bonnie Lee Bakley because of her lonely hearts. There's a lot of men that feel upset by really not connecting with her, what have you. And so he justifies it by parking a block and a half away because of those reasons. That is also why he justifies bringing a gun to dinner.
Wow.
So he has a gun with him at dinner, and they check out of dinner. They pay the check. They leave at 9:30. They walk to the car, and when they get to the car, yeah, that's perfect. Robert Blake realizes that he's forgot his gun in the booth.
He's forgotten his what?
His gun, the gun that he brought. He forgot it in the booth, as one does, right? You bring a gun to dinner, you leave it in the booth, no red flags.
Yeah.
So he runs back to Vitello's, allegedly.
Right.
Picks up the gun. He drinks 2 glasses of water.
Oh, when he's back at the...
Yeah. I mean... He's thirsty after running back a block and a half.
Yeah, I don't remember what happens. I know. Okay, go ahead. This is great.
Yeah, I know. So he leaves the gun
I didn't remember these details.
The booth. He drinks 2 glasses of water while he's back at Vitello's. And then he goes back to the car, and Bonnie Lee Bakley is shot twice.
Oh my! I mean, he arrives to find her shot twice.
To find her shot twice.
So we know he didn't do it with that gun, right? Because he was in the restaurant, right?
Yeah, allegedly.
Well, I mean, he didn't. He was in the restaurant, wasn't
Well, a lot of witnesses don't remember him going back.
I see.
The busboy doesn't remember a gun left in the booth that he bussed after he left.
Oh.
So there are witnesses that were brought into trial that did corroborate that, like, he never went back. He was not back. That never happened.
Wow.
So he goes back. He finds his wife shot twice, once in the cheek, I believe, and once in the neck on the right side, because she was sitting in the passenger seat of the car. Now, if you're watching, you can see the image of the car. A neighbor calls the EMT and the police, and they come and they get Bonnie Lee Bakley. And it's interesting because when Robert Blake goes and knocks on that neighbor's door, he says, "We've been mugged and she's injured," not that she's shot in the face. And so the EMT puts her into the ambulance, and she actually dies at the hospital at 10:15. So he is, if you go down, he's distraught, but he is acting a little strange. And there was one point where the EMT said to him, "She's going to be okay." And he didn't react how you think that he might react.
Mother effer! Are you kidding?
He was
I
not
said
happy.
all this stuff with these stunt guys. I do the whole routine, the way we rehearsed it, and she's going to be okay?
Exactly.
That is not what I wanted.
Yeah, that wasn't what he wanted to hear. So
I've told you, it's never easy being in this business.
The business of murder. We only have another minute or two, so take me to the...
Okay. So he's charged with her murder, and they find the murder weapon, which is a gun from World War II, actually, issued to the German army. It's a Walter P-38. They find that in the dumpster. But he
Shout out to the German army. Right. Okay.
He had a different gun. Long story short, they arrest him. They charge him with her murder, but he is acquitted. He is acquitted of the murder.
That's what I thought. That's what. But didn't they retry him or something? What happened?
No, the civil trial that came from her children. She had 4 children. He was found guilty or liable and was ordered to pay $15 million, which is where he declared bankruptcy. But quickly, part of the reason that he was acquitted was the gunshot residue. And he had only 5 particles. And shooting a gun like that, he would have had at least 100 particles. What they failed to mention in court, or maybe what wasn't communicated to the jury, is that he was rubbing his hands in the grass and in his hair. He was taking care of that.
But he did have gun residue.
He did have 5
well, I mean, how do you
particles of gun
explain that
residue.
gun residue at all?
I don't know. He was carrying a gun. I don't know.
No, but I mean, it seems indefensible that you would have gun residue on your hand if you didn't discharge a firearm.
I mean, I can't say for sure. Maybe it was
They needed keen attorney Mark Thompson involved in this, didn't they? They needed a prosecutor. All right, we're wrapping up. What is this that we're seeing?
These are just more pictures of where the car was parked. This is a note, if you go down, that was written. It's basically a what to bring when you want to murder your wife and get rid of a body note. He defended it as being something that the handyman was buying because he was constructing his home. But I feel like if I gave this list of things for Mark to pick up at Home Depot, I'd be in a lot of trouble.
Wow. The kind of things on the list are what? What?
You've got shovel, sledgehammer, duct tape,
I see.
Bleach, the things that you would need to dispose of a body in the desert, which is what they were accusing him of this list.
But they did. But in the end, they didn't bury her body. It was discovered there in the car. And anyway, so he was acquitted in the criminal case, but found guilty in the civil.
Yeah, I think all the solicitation he did for help with the handyman and the two stuntmen did not help because nobody was going to help him kill his wife.
Yeah.
And so then he was acquitted. He got remarried. And then, unfortunately, I know this is going to come as a surprise, that marriage did not work out either.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
well,
so,
it's...
What?
Yeah, all right. So, Courtney, thank you for walking us through the Robert Blake thing. I didn't remember the going back in and then stop to get the gun, I remember. But then he had a couple of glasses of water just to give whoever is involved in the murder more time.
I mean, if you're going to have an alibi, you really need to lean into it. And so he constructed this narrative about what he did in the restaurant.
It's kind of...
by which nobody remembers any of this.
Last quick question. Nobody heard gunshots while he was in the restaurant?
That's what I was wondering, too. It's like, what did he use to make the gun silent? And I don't know enough about pistols, and I don't know.
But so the actual killing occurred, it could have occurred while he was there, not while he was in the restaurant.
I don't think he ever went back to the restaurant.
Okay,
I
think that was just...
he killed her. That was just a story that he told the cops.
It's pretty damning.
Nobody saw him go back in.
All right.
But the adding of the details is quite... ridiculous, right? So
thank you for joining us,
thank
Courtney.
you for
Everybody,
having me. Thank you
Before
so
we
much.
let her go, I wanted to ask her a question about the speaking of dead people, the in memoriam segment at the Oscars, right?
Yeah.
And last night they didn't have everyone that had passed away that was in the film industry, and they had this kind of QR code that said, for more dead, you could scan here.
That's right. Kim's
I just wanted to think that, were those the second-rate dead that didn't make it to the A-list and you were insulted even in death? Did anyone else think this might have been in poor taste?
Oh, that is really funny.
That's so funny.
No, it's true. They always leave people out, and here they had a QR code.
And finally, we use that technology for what it was intended for. Let's be honest.
Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
Oh, we love it.
On the Mark Thompson
We
Show.
love it. Thank you, Courtney, everybody. Courtney, well done. Well done. All right, let me quickly...
The Mark Thompson Show.
Wow, that was loud. Let me welcome Steve Moskowitz in. Thanks for your patience, Steve. We're in the middle of a murder mystery. We got to run it out. You understand?
Of course. And there's a big difference between a criminal trial and civil. Look at OJ. He was found not guilty by the jury, but then he had that enormous civil judgment against him. But like I talk about with the pensions, even though he's had that multi-million-dollar judgment against him for so many years, he's not lost a penny from his pension because the protections I've told you about in previous ones. And that's why, I'm talking to your viewers and trying to explain that there's so much that may be available to you, like this ERC.
Right.
Mark, every day people still haven't heard about it. And I say, well, look, this is the federal government helping out small business. And they say, well, what's the definition of small business? 500 employees and under. So that covers a lot of businesses. 500, you're not so small. And the government has given away up to $26,000 for every employee that you had during 2020 and 2021 that qualifies. And there's two ways to qualify. The easy way, everybody's doing the easy way. Did your gross revenue go down by a certain amount? Yes or no? It's a yes or no. But so many firms are stopping there because the other way is a lot more work. It's a facts and circumstances test. I've told you about a client I've been working with. We have 4 meetings with homework to try to determine. And I haven't charged that client a penny because I don't know if I'm going to take the case yet or not. That's why the other firms aren't willing to do it. They're just, quick in and out, keep it moving. And we're not like that. We care about somebody. Somebody's business is like a child. It's their life. They put their heart and their soul in it. It becomes a living being. And we understand the importance that this ERC money, this $26,000, up to $26,000 per employee that qualifies, can make all the difference in the world between somebody turning their business around, staying in business, or not. And again, there could be a lot of money involved. We've had clients, and I realize everybody's facts, circumstances are different, not everybody qualifies. We've had clients that have gotten millions. We've got lots of clients that have gotten hundreds of thousands and smaller amounts too. That makes such a difference. And again, the number one point is, if you've talked to your CPA, and I was a CPA before I was a tax attorney, or somebody else told you, you don't qualify because your gross revenue didn't go down enough, talk to us for a second opinion. Let's see if you qualify under this other method that is a lot more work for us, but we don't care about that. We just want to get you every dollar to which you're legally entitled.
That's what's become clear to me, is that the work that has to go into it is just work that a lot of firms just don't do. It's a remarkable thing, and it can only be explained, as you say, in the way that suggests, hey, it's just easier, from a cost-benefit standpoint, from their standpoint, just to, pass on it up. No, you don't qualify, but let's see what else we can get you,
Exactly. And I don't want a doctor treating me that way, and you wouldn't want it either.
Sure. Read Steve and get the real story on your situation. You see, even in today's headlines with SVB, there are ways that the government will help you. Hey, it's there. Why shouldn't you at least get it? You pay into that. You pay into the system that offers ERC. Why shouldn't you at least try to get some of that money, see if you're eligible for it? 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. Also online, you can reach Steve at MoskowitzLLP.com. Hey, and whatever your situation, we talk about this all the time. You may not have, you may have missed taxes, meaning that you didn't have the money, so you thought, hey, I'll pass on this, I'll pay it, I'll try to defer it. Whatever your situation, it might feel like a hornet's nest to you. Steve has seen it all before. Let him be your advocate. 888-TAX-DEAL. Steve, good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Yeah, right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So we have Michael Hiltzik coming up. He's the Pulitzer Prize-winning business writer for the LA Times. Let's talk about SVB. It's a big deal. Yeah. And in SVB, there are aspects of the banking system revealed. And I'd suggest to you, there are aspects of the corporate/capitalist structure that are revealed that may just throw a little bit of your presumption or our presumptions about the way things are set up on their side. I'll speak more about this with Hiltzik, and I'll let him lay it all out. But I'm telling you, there are, I believe, some revelations within all of this and the way the government has handled it. So that's still to come. Smash the like button like a boss. Come on.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. Let's start with what's happening in Iran. Thousands who participated in anti-government protests in Iran are being pardoned. That is what the nation's judiciary chief, I can say that, said, according to state media. The protests happened after a young woman died while being detained by the morality police in September. There is a pretty controversial oil drilling project that is moving forward in Alaska. The Biden administration gave formal approval for the massive Willow project, despite criticism from environmental activists. But President Biden is expected to announce sweeping new protections for federal lands and waters in Alaska, along with the approval of the Willow oil project.
It's outrageous. It's disgusting. It's a fraud that this administration can call themselves at all forward-thinking when it comes to the environment and green energy and the problems with climate and the crisis with climate, and then okay this. But leave that climate crisis stuff aside. This is pristine land, and we are drilling on it. And then they say this, and then I'll shut up. They say, well, this will help bring down the price of oil. It'll help bring down the price of gasoline at the pump. That is utter BS. Anybody who believes that is a sucker. It will not. If you were to completely drill right now and get the whole thing done and online in an hour, by noon today, let's say, it wouldn't affect the price of fuel at the pump 1 cent. It's an outrage. The fuel that will be taken and extracted from your land, you're an American, the fuel that will be taken from that Alaskan wilderness, that goes out of the open market. Yeah, it doesn't even stay here in this country. It's about time that we take back the land that is ours and protect it. And this administration, for all of the transformative aspects of some of their legislation, and it would seem some of their philosophy about legislation, they have really let this business of they're going to be jobs, it's going to lower the price at the pump. I think it's a money play. It's an absolute money play, and it's a political play. They want Alaska, so that's why I'm beside myself. It really is wrong. So anyway,
It's fantastic.
Okay, I guess not everybody agrees.
I'm moving to Elon Musk. He plans to.
We could try ignoring it, sir.
He plans to build a company town on thousands of acres east of Austin,
That's another guy
Texas.
I've got a problem with. Elon Musk. All right.
And another thing. The Wall Street Journal reports that Musk has in mind a Texas utopia along the Colorado River where his employees could live and work. Real estate agents and officials say Musk has bought 6,000 acres around Austin over the last 3 years. I mean, You wondered, he wants to make it nice for his employees, but he doesn't tend to treat them very nicely when he lays them off. So.
Yeah, why don't you put those Neuralink chips in all of their heads? That way you can, keep reminding them how nice you're being. The same way you do the animals in the experiments for Neuralink.
Silicon Valley Bank. Governor Gavin Newsom, there's a lot of different opinions about this. The governor says action on Silicon Valley Bank is having a positive impact on California. He reacted to the collapse last week when regulators seized all deposits. The Treasury Department instructed the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation yesterday to guarantee customers will have access to all of their money starting today. Governor Newsom said this will ensure small businesses can make payroll, affordable housing projects will be able to continue construction, and nonprofits can keep their doors open. But Republican presidential candidates are reacting to this collapse of Silicon Valley Bank too. Former President Trump had something to say. He is considered the front runner of the party right now, apparently. He lashed out at President Biden for the bank's failure. In a post on Truth Social over the weekend, Trump said there will be a Great Depression far bigger and more powerful than that of 1929. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley tweeted, Biden is pretending this isn't a bailout when it actually is. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who's seen as the one of the top competitors, despite not yet officially jumping into the race, suggested diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives were to blame. What? He said the banks were so concerned with DEI and politics that they deviated from their core mission. President Biden insisted the rollback of regulations during the Trump administration are partly to blame. There is, and I'm so sorry I don't have a picture of it, but there is a highway in the South Bay that is closed right now because of a sinkhole. This is a heads up for drivers in San Mateo County. You've got Highway 84 closed in both directions because of the sinkhole. The sheriff's office tweeting a photo showing a pretty big crack stretching across, affecting both directions at Portola Road out to Skyline Boulevard. And Caltrans says a landslide caused major damage to the road, and there is no estimated time for reopening it. California College is adding a new class on pop superstar Taylor Swift. It'll take a deep dive into her 2012 song, All Too Well. This is happening at Stanford University, where a chance for students to have an introduction on topics taught by an alumni of the program. Schools in Texas and New York have also added classes focused on this Grammy-winning singer. Swift will be back in the area for a 2-night stop on her tour in July. And maybe you are kind of disappointed that the lights on the Bay Bridge went dark. Not to worry, they're back on. Oops, by accident. They're not supposed to be. They returned last night, 1 week after they officially went dark on the Bay Bridge. The nonprofit behind the display said the lights are glitching out and they won't turn off. What? The group has been raising money to fix the lights using 50,000 permanent LEDs on both sides of the bridge so more people can see them. But they're not supposed to be on. They're raising money to get new lights installed. Now they can't get the old lights to turn off.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Oh, my God.
This report, sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz for more than 30 years. Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, Steve Moskowitz is the guy. He's at 888-TAX-DEAL and MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
Joe Fish, Sal the Shoemaker, Joe Box, and Little Anthony.
Their envy wonton killing. I don't know what a wonton killing is. I'm going to have to look that one up.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
It is the day before Mark's Madness starts with a play-in tomorrow. Welcome to the show. You can see I'm wearing the Mark's Madness hat over my strangely ghost-like white complexion. I don't know why. I am embarrassingly white. I'm embarrassed by how chalk-like my complexion is. That said, it's not as bad as this. This makes it look even worse than it is. So there's some lighting thing. But believe me, of the issues that I have, technically, that's not a top one. But Mark's Madness is the hat I'm wearing, and you can get it in the Mark merch store if you want to join the legions who have the Mark's Madness hat. It's at getmarkmerch.com, but that's not really what I'm mentioning. Before I get to the Pulitzer Prize winner who's joining us in just a moment, I want to remind you that tomorrow you will hear two drops that are involved in a play-in. The commissioner of Mark's Madness is producer Albert. Isn't that right? Tomorrow there's a play-in round, yes?
Yes, tomorrow there will be two matchups, one in the 10 o'clock hour, one in the 2 o'clock hour, or 11 o'clock hour, and then the winners from both matchups will make it to the actual tournament, which will begin on Thursday, which means Wednesday is the day you will be filling out your brackets. I'll probably have a pre-recorded video of how to do it, and we'll play on the show and not get copyright strike because that's my video.
Yes, Albert did a explainer video once before. He did a nice explainer video, and he'll do another one. We have a podcast that actually plays all the drops that will be in the tournament for you. So if there's any lack of clarity about what a certain drop is, you'll know. So we've thought it through, and there's the Mark's Madness hat. You can get it at getmarkmerch.com. It's a beautifully embroidered hat. And looking forward to the start of Mark's Madness. Now, again, we'll do the play-in tomorrow, and then the actual brackets will fill in, and we'll share our thoughts on it. We can help you fill out your brackets. And Albert will tell you how to get the brackets. All of that will happen tomorrow. So good times. Now, before I go any further, I want to say smash the like button like a boss, and let's get going.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This guy I've been a fan of his writings for so long. I didn't realize that we went to the same university. Although I think he likes to claim, he likes to claim Columbia as his. I've noticed they kind of talks about Columbia more than he does Colgate. But he is a Pulitzer Prize-winning business writer and couldn't come at a better time given the bailout of SVB. Was it a bailout? Feels like a bailout to me. Let's welcome him now, though. Michael Hiltzik from the LA Times. There you are. Look at you, you handsome fool. All right. Michael.
I don't want to break the camera. So.
I got to tell me what happened. You can review. I think we're all roughly familiar with the X's and O's by now. But again, if you can just review and then tell us how the government's sweeping in and how somehow this isn't a bailout. Which is what they're saying.
Sure. Well, Silicon Valley Bank, it had a couple of major problems. One was that all of its depositors came from the same place. They came from Silicon Valley, that is to say, the high tech and biotech industries.
And why is that bad, Michael? Why is that a bad thing?
Well, it's bad because they all tend to move in lockstep. And when this is a very insular community, as I'm sure you know, that they know what everyone knows what each other is doing. And when one gets spooked, as has happened, they all get spooked and they all bailed out at the same time. They all went through the door. But at the same time, Silicon Valley Bank had collected a lot of assets. That is to say, it owned Treasury securities, federal agency securities that it had bought over the years to backstop its deposits, and it bought them all at the peak. It bought these securities, fixed income bonds, when interest rates were zero, so the price and the value of the bonds was at the very top. Well, over the last year, interest rates have just taken off thanks to the Fed, and that means that the bonds lost huge amounts of value. So when the depositors all decided that they wanted to run through the door and get out of the bank had to sell securities that were underwater, that were in the red, and it just could not sustain. There's this just huge mismatch between liabilities, which are deposits, and assets, which are these bonds.
Let me go back for a moment.
One day there was.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt, Michael, but because you are talking about those bonds, what they did was it good stewardship of the money? It seemed like a pretty solid. So they're buying long-term T-bills. I mean, that's not exactly a speculative investment typically.
Well, long-term T-bills are fine unless what you're doing with them is supporting short-term deposits, and then and this is the way bank runs. Bank runs are always the same. They're mismatched between short-term liabilities and long-term deposits, and you can't sell the one fast enough to cover the other. This is the same going back to the 1870s. Every bank run has been, related to this.
Okay, I'm
so
sorry. So
that's what happened on.
So the assets are no longer
Thursday,
worth, and they can't dump them. They can't raise the money.
Well, they can't dump them at the price they paid for them. They started to dump them and were taking huge losses, which they disclosed. They also disclosed that to cover those losses, they wanted to sell more stock, and that spooked everybody. Here's this bank we thought was in great shape. Now it needs this sudden hysterical capital infusion. So everybody tried to get out through the door. The door is just not big enough. On one day, Thursday, there were orders for withdrawals of $42 billion all at once. That's a lot of money. The bank
but Michael, you don't have that kind of run unless it was some sort of, and this is what I really wanted to get to. Is it the good old boys or the tech bro network where, one calls another, the Peter Thiels of the world? I mean, and he's almost beyond tech bro at this point,
Peter Thiel, I think, has been blamed for setting this stampede off because, he's a venture investor. He's got portfolio companies that he's basically invested in. And on Wednesday, he advised them all to get their money out of Silicon Valley Bank. And, once again, Silicon Valley, everybody knows everybody else's business. Everybody else said, we better get out too. And, the other element of this is that bank deposits are insured up to $250,000 by the FDIC. But all of these companies had deposits at Silicon Valley Bank in the millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that were uninsured. So they had to get that money out, or they feared they would lose it. And that's basically the story up to last Friday.
Okay, so now you cut to Friday when the government comes in and says, we're going to handle this. You know that, as you suggested, depositors who have $250,000 or less will be okay. It'll be covered by government money. The question, though, becomes all of these companies to which you've referred that have all of this other money, as you said, tens of millions, maybe well in excess of that maybe. And what happens to their money? Because if those companies lose that money, they go under. I mean, big companies that we would know, right?
Yeah, well, it wasn't a question, I don't think, of them losing the money. It was more a question of them not having access to it. When the FDIC took over this bank on Friday, they said, "Look, we're going to cover everybody up to the insured amount, up to 250,000 per depositor. If you, to the extent you had more than that, we're going to give you some of it in the next week. That's this week, and then we're going to give you a chit. And as we unwind Silicon Valley Bank, as we sell off these bonds, we'll recover enough." No one really knew how much they would recover, but it really looked as though the bank was essentially okay, or it had enough in assets. It just couldn't get them in time to cover. So you had venture startup funds, startup companies that said, I've got a payroll that I've got to pay this week. If I don't have the money that's on deposit at Silicon Valley Bank, my employees are not going to get their paychecks. We're not going to be able to pay vendors. We're not going to be able to, pay our cloud providers, what have you. So there was widespread consternation, let's say, across the startup community, and that's when
consternation's a ding word, by the way. Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
And then finally, so the Federal Reserve, the FDIC, the Department of the Treasury put their heads together over the weekend, and finally on Sunday, that's yesterday, they said, we're actually going to cover everybody's deposits up to 100%. You can get your money on Monday, that is today, and then we'll basically sell off the assets, and if there's not enough there to cover the deposits, we will institute an assessment on all of the FDIC member banks, and that will be enough to cover everything. So the taxpayers aren't going to actually pay a dime.
The banking system pays it, or they through this fund.
The banks, and that's the way the FDIC works. Is they have annual premiums that they charge their member banks that are designed to create this fund that they use to cover banks that have failed.
Now, let me ask you about this. Is this the way it should be? Is this a policy? Meaning the notion somehow that we'll recover funds even if you are not $250,000 or less. Is that policy that we've now seen play out here a policy that makes sense to you, or is it is it an assumption now then that this system, the government system, is taking the risk out of business, but allowing business to keep all the benefits of the risk that business takes? If you follow that question.
We will know, in the fullness of time, but I don't think so. Basically, this is not the first time that the FDIC has said we're going to cover 100% of deposits at a failed bank. It's done that, I think, more than once when the bank is big enough to create possible problems in the entire banking system. And I think that's what they saw here. Basically, if depositors couldn't get all of their money covered, then there was going to be a rush to big banks and, medium-sized banks, community banks, small banks, specialized banks. They were going to lose all their deposits because everybody was going to say, well, I'm going to keep my money at JP Morgan and Company or Bank of America or what have you. They didn't really want that to happen. Those banks are too big already. They didn't want them to get bigger. And they were afraid of contagion, that basically people would create runs on other banks. Now, clearly, this is a crisis situation. It came up quickly. It affected, an important sector of the economy. It got a lot of publicity, and I think they were right in saying we have to cover the depositors, but they're not saying that all of a sudden bank deposits are going to be covered for more than $250,000, because most people and most businesses don't keep more than $250,000 at any one bank. If you're a business, especially a big business, you have a whole department that's responsible for taking your free cash and making sure that it's invested, protected, spread around what have you. This was an unusual situation in which all of these companies, in part because their venture investors said, "Go, put your money at Silicon Valley Bank. We like those guys. We deal with them. We borrow from them. We lend to them. They're a good bank. So, we think it's fine for you to put all your money in this one bank." And that was really reckless and dangerous. So,
questions that are
you
coming
raised
in.
the question.
Well, before I handle this question about did SVB do their due diligence for investments, especially when loaning out to startups? I mean, it's money that the startups are putting in. It wasn't a question of the startups losing the. I mean, was there? Then I'll get back to my question. I don't think it was. Well, you can answer this. Karen's question about due diligence.
I don't think there was any question about SVB doing due diligence when it lent money to companies. I mean, it lent money. It had banking relationships with something like half of the startups in the Valley. And it knew that, some were going to go bad, but, the ones that didn't go bad would cover the ones that did go bad. So it's not their due diligence. The question is the due diligence of the depositors. What were they thinking when they, left these huge sums of money at a single bank? And, you raise the question, is this a bailout? And the answer is, yeah, it's a bailout. But the question with bailouts always is, who's getting bailed out? And in this case, the people getting bailed out are depositors who are essentially, they weren't smart about it, but they're sort of innocent bystanders.
Right.
The shareholders of Silicon Valley Bank, they're going to be wiped out. They're not going to be bailed out. They're going to be wiped out. The executives of Silicon Valley Bank, well, they're going to come under a lot of scrutiny. They're going to get sued, that's for sure, because there were shareholders who thought they were running the bank properly, and just in the last year, the shares of this bank declined by 65%. Because there were investors who said, this is a bank that relies on the venture industry, and venture startups are sort of slowing down, and we're not sure we like that. So they look. But 1 month ago, Jim Cramer, the great guru on CNBC, said, "Hey, this is a great bank. You should buy it. You should buy its shares. It's one of my top picks." And
exactly.
there are a lot of people who think that. There are a lot of people who think that, the idea is you listen to Jim Cramer and you do the opposite of what he recommends, and you'll make money that way.
This is an interesting point, and this speaks to deregulation, which is something that the Trump administration has leaned in heavily for, and it's always being the GOP essentially is clamoring essentially for all these regulations. I call them protections. You can call them regulations. I'd consider them protections right now, right? Those protections to be rolled back. And this speaks to William Lundgren's question. SVB did not have a risk manager. Is that true, Michael? They didn't have a.
Yeah, as I understand it, their chief risk manager left. Last year they didn't fill the position, and to put this in context, the banks that were Silicon Valley's size had lobbied relentlessly to loosen the regulations on them that were imposed by the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010. This was the act that was it was drafted after the last big bank meltdown, and it was designed to basically mitigate the problems that we had then. So these banks, including Silicon Valley Bank, which testified and lobbied for loosening the regulations on banks like itself, they got their wish under Trump, and Trump basically raised the threshold for heightened regulation on banks that were between $50 billion and $250 billion in assets. Well, Silicon Valley Bank, which lobbied for this, went over the $50 billion threshold in 2017, never quite made it to 250, but its assets were in the neighborhood of $200 billion earlier this year. So it benefited from this, basically this liberalization of the rules. Now, whether this would not have happened if the regulations hadn't been loosened. We
Right.
don't know because the Federal Reserve, which should have been keeping an eye on this bank, was not doing so.
It is true that the bank execs did get bonuses before this bank, quote, went under, right? As Gail is saying here in the chat.
Yeah, the bank execs, they handed out a lot of bonuses earlier last week. It's unclear how far down in the in the employee ladder those bonuses went. I don't think it was only the top few. The CEO of the bank started selling stock last month or even the month before. I'm not sure that any of these people are going to be able to keep that money. And the CEO, basically, he's going to be living with his lawyers for the rest of his life. And that's not going to be cheap. So I don't know if he's going to end up, being able to pocket this. But, there's sort of a lot of legal fallout yet. There's financial fallout, and we'll see how much of what the bank did was unwise, imprudent, or illegal.
I
think it's
I know
mostly the first two categories.
You think it's mostly unwise and I'm sorry, what was the second thing you said?
Unwise and imprudent.
Imprudent, which is a danger.
I'm not sure I've seen anything that suggests it was illegal. They did anything unlawful.
In the question of what should happen in the future, this is an interesting point. And again, just as a door to it, here in the chat, are credit unions an answer? Let me just put a slash on that and say, maybe not credit unions, but should there be a nationalization, stay with me before you call me a big commie, a nationalization of certain banks, or where the feds actually have a bank that you invest in, and then it's insured up to whatever. You don't have to worry about your money. I mean, this since the feds are coming in anyway and somehow making life right for all of these banking customers, should there be some high ground that's associated with the government? Or, and to this question, are credit unions the answer, if you want to answer that too?
Well, credit unions tend to be smaller institutions, so I don't know that they're the answer to everybody. But look, I think the vast majority of Americans who have bank accounts have less than $250,000 in any one bank. So they don't really have any reason to worry. This was, sort of an unusual, if not a unique bank. I've heard from customers who say, it wasn't a very good bank, actually. I mean, we had trouble. We would do transactions, and the transactions wouldn't, they would fall out. They wouldn't be done properly, and they weren't big on customer service. You couldn't walk in. It's not like walking into your credit union or walking into your B of A branch and depositing or withdrawing your money. It was somewhat less accommodating than that. It was really basically a place for startup companies to park the money that they were getting from their VCs, and they were doing it because their venture capitalists were telling them to deal with this bank. And it was almost a badge of honor if you had if you were a startup and had a banking relationship at Silicon Valley Bank.
Right.
Silicon Valley Bank said, we're the innovation economy's bank. So,
and Michael, they do this thing, and you're aware of this, where there's a white glove treatment of certain customers, and that was going on at SVB, where they don't pay the same rate as other retail customers, and the fees and access is all different for certain customers. I feel as though the other part of this story is the way that Silicon Valley was romanced by this bank.
Well, I don't know what the range was of services and prices and rates. I think if you came to Silicon Valley Bank because Peter Thiel's venture firm told you to, then you probably got decent treatment. But I think every venture firm on Sand Hill Road in Menlo Park, had relationships with this bank and made sure that its portfolio companies had relationships, and that's how this bank got so big so fast during the run up in the venture sector over the last couple of years, 3-4 years.
So the last question as we finish up with you, Michael Hiltzik, so generous with your time. You are satisfied with this solution to the issue of then Signature Bank is, alongside SVB, that these banks that become distressed because of the bank runs for the reasons that you've detailed earlier. Are you satisfied the way the feds have found this cure, which is associated with the existing fund to insure deposits?
Well, I think the Fed and the FDIC and the Treasury did what they had to do this weekend so that there wouldn't be, chaos in the banking sector, or really the financial sector this morning. Signature Bank, by the way, is somewhat different. Signature Bank and Silvergate Bank, which failed last week, these were banks that were involved in the cryptocurrency field, and that's just bad news. I mean,
well, but their deposits were real, though, right? I mean, the money that's sitting there in the bank is real. It's tied to crypto, but isn't it? Or maybe I'm not understanding it correctly.
Well, but their assets were in crypto. I mean, they were basically taking plunges in the crypto business, and cryptocurrency values have just gone through the floor.
So you're
and
saying
I think
that
that's why
they
those banks failed.
They didn't buy long-term T-bills. You're saying they bought crypto.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what their asset mix was, but they both of them made a point of being, we're the bank for you crypto guys, and that's been bad news. So I think the federal regulators did what they had to do. I think basically they settled everybody's stomach in Silicon Valley, who was afraid that they weren't going to be able to get the money that they needed to pay their employees and do everything else. And I think probably we can, cross our fingers, this is going to pass fairly quickly, certainly faster than it would have if they stuck to the initial idea that we'll cover up to $250K.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I also saw this over the weekend, this notion that there would have been a predatory aspect to various capital groups running in, picking up these assets for 60 cents on the dollar. Essentially, we'll take it for you if you're selling off these various banks. You know more about this stuff than I do, but they're picking up.
Well, I think that's basically what the FDIC is doing, is they're putting these assets up for auction. And I don't know that 60 cents on the dollar is going to be enough. 80 or 90 cents on the dollar may do it. The hold to maturity portfolio of Silicon Valley Bank had losses in the neighborhood of 15% if you actually had to take the losses instead of just hang on. And so I think, 85 cents on the dollar and you can walk out the door with these assets. I don't think it's predatory necessarily.
No, but let me finish with the predatory part. Okay, Michael, here's the predatory part. This is the way it could have gone down. It's not going to go down this way. As you say, you'll get 85 cents on the dollar, whatever, and it's done. But I thought, at least in some of the rumblings over the weekend, you were going to see various concerns move in. Again, this would be the predatory thing. You pick it up for 60 cents on the dollar or 70 cents on the dollar, and then you petition the feds for the bailout for the other 30% to be made whole. That was, again, in the zeitgeist of what was going on over the weekend. I thought, wow, that's a scam, that you pick up a company for whatever, you pick up an asset for this discounted price, and then you have the feds make up the discount. That's what I was talking about.
Well, the prices of these assets are all public. They're all traded on the public market, so everybody really knows what they're worth. And there will be an auction, and if it's run properly, which I assume it will be, no one's going to really be able to,
shimmy
make
that
an
way.
unfair killing. They'll bid what it's worth.
Find him in the LA Times. Find him here whenever he is good enough to be with us. And he really does respond to the bat beam. So it's very, very cool, Michael Hiltzik. Thank you. Albert, you should give Michael a Marx Madness bracket just for the hell of it. He's a big sports fan. He might actually rock it.
I'll try to explain it as best as I can, but just click names and see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would also, exactly, no obligation, believe me. It's okay. You're a very busy dude. You're a Pulitzer Prize winner. Michael Hiltzik, everybody. Maybe he does it. Great to see you, Michael. Thank you. Always appreciate your insights. Thank you, my friend.
Okay.
Yes, I'm very unhappy with everything I've heard today on your show.
Yes, and thank you, all of you who've hit the like button. It costs you nothing. The like button is a way that you can help us in
with your iron rod.
algorithms of YouTube. What would you like to do, Commissioner?
We're a little late, but let's just get to news, and then we'll just round out the show. We have a couple of donations, and we'd like to shout out some people, and
Okay. Okay, that's good. I think I understood what was going on.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
Yes, we do have processes, protocols, and standards. Smash the like button. Kim's News next. Thank you for being here. Good conversation with Michael Hiltzik, Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Let's head to Pajaro. More people finding safety after a 120-foot section of the Pajaro River broke on Saturday. That forced the community of Pajaro to pack up and leave. Evacuations continue for the Salinas Valley from Spreckles to Greenfield. Other areas in all three Central Coast counties are on standby if the flooding gets worse. Several emergency shelters are open, including the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds and the Salvation Army in Seaside. Could be months before families in Pajaro could move back into their homes too. Monterey County officials say they'll likely be allowed to return after the water recedes, but only to collect some belongings. It'll take far more time for the damage repair to happen there. More than 100 rescues were conducted over the weekend due to all that flooding. As of last night, the levee breach was at 300 feet. The crews are using granite boulders to try to fill the gaps. And Monterey County and the San Ardo Water District are warning, do not drink the tap water in this area. It looks like it may be contaminated. It turns out the floodwater was detected in a well, and chemicals can stick around even after boiling. That means everyone is urged to use only bottled water for drinking, cooking, brushing teeth, washing dishes, making ice, and preparing food in that area. Senator Elizabeth Warren has something to say about the bank failure at Silicon Valley Bank. In an op-ed for the New York Times, the Massachusetts Democrats suggested a 2018 law that eased regulations set the stage for the collapse of this California bank. Republican presidential candidates pointed to President Biden administration policies for the bank failure. So let the blame game begin. This is Michael Cohen, former Trump lawyer, now testifying before a New York City grand jury. It is investigating hush money payments that he made on the former president's behalf to a porn star who said she had an affair with Trump. Cohen's testimony comes as the Manhattan District Attorney's Office decides whether or not to seek charges against Trump. At Stanford University, on a whiteboard affixed to a door of a dorm room, multiple swastikas, an image of Adolf Hitler found on Saturday. The resident of that room identifies as Jewish. In a letter Stanford sent to students, they say the symbols may have been meant to intimidate that student. No word on who left those images behind. And here's a story I know that's going to get a big reaction from the crowd. ESPN reporting that San Francisco 49ers quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo plans to sign with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Wow.
What? Feels great, baby.
Man.
I was hoping I'd get the what. Garoppolo said to have agreed to a 3-year, $67.5 million deal, including $34 million guaranteed.
Feels great, baby.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo played for Raiders head coach Josh McDaniels with the New England Patriots, and they will now apparently reunite in Las Vegas for the Raiders.
Feels great, baby.
Yeah, he's good. You know, the question with Garoppolo, I'm sure the commissioner would agree with me on this, is durability. I mean, he's good. I think the question becomes, and I think the question is answered easily, and the answer is no. Can he make it through an entire season? Wouldn't you agree with me, Kamish?
Yeah, well, there's injury concerns, and now we got to worry about him just walking down the Las Vegas Strip every day. So
Feels great, baby.
I mean, that kind of handsome unleashed on the Vegas Strip. It
That's
could be an
danger.
issue.
Feels great, baby.
Yeah.
That is danger. So I'm just trying to look at this picture of the handsome, picturing him in black. I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah. Look, he was an important guy in Niners history. And
the number 10 represents blowing 10-point leads, Mark.
Speaking of the
That is
NFL,
funny.
the 2-day
Feels great, baby.
negotiating window is also open. So that allows teams to start talking to pending free agents. So in the next couple of days, we'll probably see a lot of movement.
Yeah, and I think for you,
and talk to my cheap sons and daughters.
Yeah, that's right. They're going to kick down the door for 2 weeks.
for you Niner fans, it has been reported that we signed a defensive tackle, a very good one from the Eagles, who he literally beat us in the playoffs, and now he's here to join us.
Oh my God!
Yeah, that's exciting.
All right. Well, from Jimmy to zebras, there is I didn't know you could own a zebra. No. There's a zebra owner in Ohio being treated for injuries after being attacked by the animal.
Good.
Because they're not supposed to be in captivity, right? Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Aren't they supposed to be running free on the plains of
whole
Africa?
Thing, it's just awful. Yeah.
Deputies and medical crews called to the man's property near Circleville, south of Columbus, yesterday after he was bitten and seriously hurt. Authorities say the zebra had to be put down when it became aggressive with first responders.
Oh,
Again,
my God.
Because it doesn't belong in that area. So
right. So you send in first responders who know nothing about dealing with this animal. Oh, my God. And then they put it down. It's just, that's really not cool.
To round out the horrible animal stories, let me give you one more.
Oh, my God.
I know.
Ma'am, I'm on the phone.
I'm sorry.
Oh, my God.
I'll leave the zebra up, but this is a story about an orca. The world's
upset so many people.
I'm upset, Whippy. I'm upset. Go
Let me
ahead,
just
Will.
add, to end on a Debbie Downer note, the world's loneliest orca is dead after years of isolated containment at a Marineland theme park.
In Canada. This is a horrible, horrible thing that we do to these great creatures, these orcas. Go ahead, Kim. Sorry.
Kiska, the orca whale, was captured in 1979 at the age of 3 and was sold to Marineland a few years later. That's heartbreaking in and of itself. In her time there, she gave birth to 5 calves, all of which tragically died at young ages.
Now, you understand they artificially inseminate this creature.
Yeah.
It's a horrible life she lived. They're used to traveling hundreds of miles in the wild. And,
Kiska
of course,
was-
they're in a tank. They're in like a bathtub. It's horrible. All their lives.
Kiska was kept alone in a cement tank since 2011, which studies have shown is considered torture to animals like whales and dolphins. They're very social. A video of Kiska repeatedly bashing her head into the walls of her enclosure went viral in 2021, many calling for Marineland to be shut down. The Ontario-based park released a statement on Friday saying they will mourn her loss.
Yeah.
Well, if you will mourn her loss, then why'd you do that to her?
This is a sad thing that we do, the way we treat these highly evolved creatures. And I include, as you know, all animals in this. The food system is filled with them as well, with but I'm not going to get into that now. But it's just it's a sad way that we treat these great creatures. And we are charged, I'd say, with, the sort of basic humanity, right? But we just can't seem to muster it when it comes to these creatures who are there for let's be clear about it. This is just for our entertainment. We just want to see them swim around. Oh, Mark, it educates the young. Does it really? Educates them? As to where's the education in watching this creature swim around a cement tank? It's horrifying. It's awful.
I've had this discussion with family members as well as to why I won't take my kids to Marine World in San Diego. There she is. That's Kiska, the loneliest orca in the world who has passed away. So this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz for more than 30 years.
Marine World wanted to be a sponsor on this show. You know what I told them?
No, thank you.
Good day, sir.
Good day, sir.
No.
Yeah, no. Nope, not going to do it.
Yeah.
But you know who we do like as tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. You can
Yes.
reach him at 888-TAX-DEAL, MoskowitzLLP.com. He's there to help and not do harm, unlike SeaWorld, so we love him for that. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, right on, Kim. Yeah. Right on, right on.
Big shout out.
Yeah. Did you want to do a... Okay, that'll work.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Why are you yelling?
Great to be with everyone today. This is Monday. We've done a lot, actually. We covered the Oscars, if you missed it. We gave you a little breakdown on the Oscars at the beginning of the show. We also gave you a breakdown on the storm, which we continue to be in the teeth of. Spencer Christian joined us at the beginning of the show as well. Then we had Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. Courtney joined us with a fine recounting of many of the details of the Robert Blake murder, which I did not recall. He was accused of murdering his wife, and he lost the civil trial about his responsibility, even though he won the criminal trial. That is to say, he was acquitted in the criminal trial. The run on the bank, the SVB Signature Bank conversation we had with Pulitzer Prize winner Michael Hiltzik, and now you're up to speed. The other thing that we've mentioned today is the coming of Mark's Madness, which is tomorrow. And, the play-in is tomorrow. So we'll decide the last couple of entries tomorrow. You'll have a chance tomorrow to vote for one or another drop to make it into the tournament. So
I've got a breaking story.
Yes. Okay, good. Please.
My apologies to interrupting the Mark's Madness hoopla, but I will say that ABC 7 News is reporting that West Valley College in Saratoga is on lockdown right now due to an armed intruder. So again, this is in Saratoga, West Valley College, an intruder on campus, according to the school's website. So the note apparently to students at West Valley College says, if you can get off campus safely without driving cars, that's probably good. Otherwise, hide if you don't know where the threat is and if an intruder comes into your hiding place. So they say leave your belongings behind.
Oh, my God.
A pretty scary situation. Our thanks to ABC 7 for their reporting on this.
Yeah. Wow.
I know. I'm the Debbie Downer of the day. What can I say?
Really? Yeah, that's again, in this bizarre culture that we operate in, that's real. Well, thank you, says Al Anonymous. So disappointed that Austin Butler didn't win an Oscar, says Rain. His Elvis portrayal is outstanding. Here's the thing. That's true. His Elvis portrayal was spectacular. I mean, it really is. You should see that movie, Elvis. But all the performances were spectacular. I mean, how do you choose? I mean, you're right. I that's why I was saying earlier, it's just crazy that they have it. This started the Oscars. It started as a promotional vehicle for Hollywood, and it worked quite successfully. It was a 20-minute presentation when it first started. And it grew into this thing with the Academy and the Oscars and, oh my God, and the world tuning in. And the way in which we exported American culture through movies was, in a way, part of the way the world was included in the movie-making celebration that was the Oscars through the year. Okay, cut to today. Now you have many more countries involved in movie making. Movie making really was, the golden age of movie making was Hollywood. But now you have spectacular work being done across the globe. I mean, did you see RRR? I mean, again, the Bollywood machine is amazing, but RRR is terrific. RRR really, I would say this to you, and Michael Schneider is the one who turned me onto it on this show. RRR is probably 2 movies. I saw it in 2 sittings, okay? So it's 3 hours long, but it's spectacular. I mean, it's acting, it's fight sequences, it's music, it's dancing. It's unbelievable. You could say that's the best movie of the year. It has it all. Or you could say All Quiet on the Western Front is the best movie of the year. It has it all. It doesn't have dancing and singing, but it has this incredible detail and the cinematic excellence that's required for these choreographed scenes of a war. It's massive. It's epic. Or you could say Elvis. I mean, and so, or what they did say, Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I don't know how you compare these things, but yeah, they got Natu. They got the one song out of RRR, but I recommend that too. Anyway, this is interesting. Vilma has a note on the Oscars. The Academy should award the Oscars as follows. In the category of Best Acting, the awards go to the following individuals for the year 2024. That would be the real way to do it, I suppose. It's still weird that you're comparing, but to be more inclusive. But the horse race of the Oscars is what brings the boys to the yard. I mean, that really is the thing that people tune. Who's going to win? All of these, it's a close race. Who's going to win? That's really what carries the whole thing. So,
did you see the rude outfit at the Oscars?
Oh, yes, the big white outfit.
The big white puffy thing. This is worn by Oscar
We'll show it to you. Yeah.
Oscar nominee Thames. And Thames wore this outfit that had kind of this giant puffy thing around her head. And it was great on the red carpet, but it really wasn't so great for all the people that were sitting behind her because they were trying to crane their neck around her so that they could actually see the stage. Here's a picture. You can see this big white puffy thing that like rises above her head and out past her shoulders. Yeah.
That's rude. That really is rude.
It's really rude. Well, it's inconsiderate. It's very unaware of, like me, I'm the only one that matters. And I'm not going to consider anyone around me.
Yeah. I mean, you could see, that's not like an accident. You could see that coming. That's not like you said the wrong thing. You sat down there, wearing a Rose Parade float, and you knew that the people behind you wouldn't be able to see.
Yeah. Now, she was nominated for Best Original Song for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. The track was called Lift Me Up. But, you would think even if they wanted it for the red carpet, they would have made it with a detachable headpiece or something so that when she sat down, she could take that sucker off so people could see around her big head.
Yeah.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah. I think that actually there has been something like it. I'll tell you this quickly. Then we'll wrap up, and I got a couple of Patreon shout-outs, and I think somebody gave us a super sticker today. But I was at the premiere of a stage show in Los Angeles, and it was one of those...
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
Yes, I was there. I was included in a group of marginal celebrities invited to a premiere in Los Angeles. So I'm sitting there, and it's about 5 minutes before the show begins. The curtain is going to go up. And there are a lot of pretty, luminaries of one sort, celebrities. The glitterati have shown up. There's a red carpet and all that stuff. It's kind of a big deal. I forget what the show was, but anyway, 5 minutes before showtime, this woman sits down in front of me, and she's wearing kind of a version of what you've just shown, like a massive hat.
Okay.
But it's a hat. It's not connected to her dress. It's a hat.
Yeah.
But it's big. I thought, this is crazy. She's not going to wear this hat for the performance, is she? And I look more closely. She's right in front of me. And it's Tyne Daly. You know the actress Tyne Daly?
Oh, yeah.
From Cagney and Lacey?
Yeah.
So Tyne Daly is sitting there with this immense hat on. And we're getting closer to curtain. And I keep thinking, this is going to be a drag. So I kind of reorient myself because I've decided I'm not going to ask Tyne Daly to take the hat off. I'm just not. She's Tyne Daly. I'm Mark Thompson. I get it. Okay. So I figure I'm going to lean a little to the left and I can see the stage and it'll be okay, but it'll kind of suck, but it'll be okay. Right as the curtain is going up, Tyne Daly lifts the child who has come with her, lifts the child up and puts the child in Tyne Daly's lap to now eclipse the only gap that allowed me to see the stage. One gap is covered by the huge hat. There's a little gap left where I can still see the stage, and now the child's head is blocking that gap. I literally couldn't see the stage because of Tyne Daly's hat and her daughter or son, I forget the gender of the child, that was sitting on Tyne Daly's lap. And that, my friends, is my... Yeah.
And you still said nothing?
I said nothing. I should have, but I didn't want to get into it, and I thought I probably should have said, "Hey, would you?" But what do you say?
Rude.
Hey, loved you and Cagney and Lacey. You're so terrific. Gotta ask you. Can we move the kid or move the hat? One of the two. Right.
You say, "I am so sorry. I'm having such trouble seeing around your hat. I'm wondering if maybe you could take it off for a little while."
Yeah. All right. Maybe
and
I
then you know where
that.
you can shove your hat, ma'am. No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go there.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Right, exactly.
But how tone deaf? Like, how unaware of your surroundings do you have to be? You know, to not consider the people around you. Extra rude.
It really is. It was crazy. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it, but I probably should have said something, but I didn't. All right, quickly.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Let me get a quick shout out to a couple of Patreon folks, and also to Jim Slayton for some darkening cream for Mark's face. He's throwing $5 at us. I need something, some kind of makeup. I do look, as I say, I just look cadaverous. You know?
Yeah, it's really nice of Jim, but that's kind of controversial, Mark. I wouldn't suggest trying to go for that darkening.
Oh yeah, but I thought I took it as tanner, but you're saying you don't want to. It's not right. Don't go all the way. But I thought you just meant like some tan number 2, like George Hamilton type thing. Some of the people who've been in our Patreon world for a long time, since the beginning: Liz B, Mike R.
Nice.
Mike R at $20 a month he sends us. Yeah. Thank you. Leela, or I'm sorry, Letha W. Robin is one of our major Patreon supporters, has been here since the beginning. You'll see her name in big font, I guess is the word I'm looking for. At the end of the show, we run all the Patreon and PayPal supporters. If you want to be a Patreon or PayPal supporter, it's a great way to support this show. Go to our webpage, themarkthompsonshow.com. You can click through to Patreon and PayPal, and I'll be honest with you, that's how we stay on the air with you. Julie T is a Patreon subscriber at $20 a month. Barbara L M, I try to leave last names out, at $25 a month. Thank you so much for that. Lisa H.M. at $10 a month. Joanne at $5 a month. These are all people who've been here since the very beginning. At $20 a month.
Thank you.
Yeah, Northside Service Company, they're big supporters of ours, and they are also Patreon subscribers at $20 a month. So if you want to help us, we keep more money if you go to Patreon and PayPal. That's why it's a good spot for you. But, of course, here on YouTube, it's great as well. And if you're watching in replay, you can see a heart with a $sign. Click on that. Leave us a little something. It's our virtual. Everybody's telling me to go get some sun. Find some sunshine, Mark. Read a book with the sun. You might even get sunburned. Might help. Albert, you know I'm not this pale. Why do I look so pale?
It's the lights.
Yeah, it's probably your ring light's a little bright, and there's a couple settings. There's a warm setting too. You're probably at just the neutral setting. The cold setting is like a little bluish, so we don't want you looking blue.
Yeah,
ma'am, I'm on the phone.
Yeah, I really do want to do something. I'll work on it. Everybody.
We'll just blame Tony for now, and we'll fix it for tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things. So you can't tell me it's over so soon. I really feel as though my bilious rage, my anger at the system was just getting started, everybody.
You got some good anger in today, yeah.
I got a little anger in, but I feel like...
Why are you yelling?
I could have gotten
Ma'am, I'm on the
in.
phone.
Yeah. So tomorrow is the play-in part of Mark's Madness. Will you have the podcast and other stuff up? What are you going to have, Albert, to explain Mark's Madness to people? And when?
The drops, people could start listening to them today. I will be publishing the podcast today along with today's show. So that's what you can get today. And then
how do people
tomorrow.
find that podcast?
On all podcast platforms, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you can get your podcasts.
Okay, so you're telling me that will be dropped as a separate podcast today. You'll hear all the drops in Mark's Madness. You guys decide. Then the brackets come out on Wednesday. Is that what you're saying, or is it
Wednesday
tomorrow?
for the brackets because we're waiting for the play-ins. So play-ins will determine the last two in, and then you can fill out your brackets on Wednesday.
For the Mark Thompson Show.
Okay, all right.
Bye-bye.
So tomorrow the play-ins, and
All the time, bye-bye.
we'll all get into Mark's Madness together. Nikki Maduro's show starts now on the Nikki Maduro channel. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.